Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Burke Brigade. Today is Tuesday, August 8th, the evening here. I'm here with the lovely and beautiful Jennifer Burke. Say hello.
Lovely and beautiful. Thank you, hon.
Lovely and beautiful. And so much more, by the way. Thank you for tuning in to the Burke Brigade. This is episode 4 in our venture into podcastism. Brought to you by the Liberty Daily, thelibertydaily.com. Let's just talk for a half a second why we started thelibertydaily.com, your drudge alternative. One thing I noticed, and not to diminish the Drudge Report's impact to conservatism and the conservative movement, and really the last couple of years more into populism, but they've had just an amazing impact. But one thing I noticed a couple years ago was that they almost always link to stories from the mainstream media. And Drudge gets so many hits a day that if they put up a story from the New York Times, the Washington Post, the LA Times, the Democrat media complex, they are driving revenue to those outlets. And to me, these outlets were failing. I mean, they have been on their last leg for years. The New York Times had to get Carlos Slim, the richest person in Mexico, to invest. The Mexican cell phone guru or tycoon, or they would have gone under. And the Washington Post, they had to get Jeff Bezos from Amazon to purchase them, or they would have likely failed. So these left stream media companies have lost a tremendous amount of credibility over the years. And it used to just sicken me to go to a Drudge story, and they just put up links like we do here on the Liberty Daily. And the overwhelming majority of the time, they would link to ABC News, CBS News, NBC News, New York Times, LA Times, Washington Post, that kind of thing. And so they're actually driving revenue to these leftist sites and propping them up. I mean, you could have a story on ABC News that literally no one is going to, but once it goes up on the Drudge Report, all of a sudden it's viral. And that's a compliment to Drudge. That's how influential they are. But nowadays, I mean, we have the Washington Examiner, you have Washington Times, CNS News,
New York Post.
Yeah, Newsbusters, Fox News, that are either conservative or right-leaning, where there's a little more concern about the truth. There's a little more concern about America, and not pushing the leftist, anti-American agenda that progressive leftists preach through the media. So we did that. The other thing is, like in 2012, I noticed that Drudge was just amazingly sycophantic about Mitt Romney. It's like, Mitt Romney's not even a conservative. Mm-hmm. I mean, he wasn't even the most conservative candidate in the race. Why am I seeing all of these puff stories about Mitt Romney on the Drudge Report?
Remember when it seemed like it was oddly, strangely, disturbingly pro-Obama in some ways?
At one point it was. Now, again, Drudge has been extremely conservative, but we just thought collectively that there is an opening.
Not collectively, together.
Yeah, we're not collectivists. Well, we are, one flesh, right? But we wanted to drive traffic to conservative websites. And so if you go to thelibertydaily.com and go to Drudge, you'll see an inviting look and feel that gives you the same kind of look and feel you're going to get at Drudge, except you're going to see very little overlap as far as content. Very little overlap. So I wouldn't tell you at all, don't go to the Drudge Report. Continue to go to the Drudge Report. But also, while you're doing that, or after you're done doing that, put the libertydaily.com on your list, and the benefit to you will be it'll save you time. Because instead of having to go to, townhall.com and the Right Scoop individually, and Washington Times, Washington Examiners, CNS News, et cetera, the Washington Free Beacon's a great conservative site. Instead of having to go to all those individually, we have cherry-picked what you need to know about as a patriotic American and what needs to be put out there on social media to really take back the country, to really fight the leftist news media and to really try to change their narrative. So that's why we started the libertydaily.com. Jennifer, more people probably know you than know me, but I just thought we'd take a second to introduce ourselves. This is our 4th episode. Why don't you tell our vast listening audience a little bit about yourself? I know this is putting you on the spot.
It really is. Well, I'm a graduate of Texas A&M University. Woo! Gig 'em Aggies.
Okay, if you're not an Aggie, you don't know what that is, but
yes, you do. A&M is nationally known.
Okay.
And please don't hold us accountable for Johnny Football. I wish he would get his life together. But anyway, I then went on to become a teacher in Texas. I taught a variety of things, special ed. I taught 5th through 8th grade. I taught every subject but science, but I tutored it. I taught electives. I taught speech communications. I taught theater arts. And then I met the incredibly handsome Matthew Burke.
The hunk. Also known as Big Sexy. Just call me Big Sexy.
And this was and I moved to Washington State after we met.
Tell them how we met.
We actually met, everybody, on Match.com.
In 2005.
In 2005. So I had been on Match.com for about 6 months. I had been married before. My first husband died after 13 months of marriage, very unexpectedly. By the year or so after he died, a coworker who met her husband on Match.com talked me into joining Match.com. So I did. Went out with guy after guy after guy, none of whom I even had the desire to have a second date with. I remember being out with one guy when the Astros, I think it was when the Astros were playing in the World Series, and I'm calling my best friend. And she's like, because she was my out. She's like, do you want me to call you? And I felt so bad. I was like, I don't know, I do and I don't. Anyway, it was terrible. So one day I said, I am just going to give this one more month. I'm sick of this. I'm going to give it one more month. I'm going to re-up for 1 month only and then see what happens. And then that's when Big Sexy walks in.
Well, not walked in, clicked in. So I was up in the Seattle, Washington area on the east side there, like Redmond, Woodinville, Washington, outside of Bellevue, Washington, if you know where that is. And the traffic in Seattle is just horrendous. And, I had 3 kids. I'd been through a divorce. Had half custody. And I thought, to go anywhere in this town takes forever. I'm not going to drive, an hour to meet some woman. I'm pretty sure God can find me somebody within, a 15-mile radius. But one night I was bored, and I decided to take the gloves off, and I removed the geographic filter, and so any woman that happened to be online at that moment on Match.com and that met my criteria, I was going to view. Like I said, I was bored, and up come this hot black chick in Houston. I thought, dang, she's got a pretty smile and big dimples, and so I gave her, the electric wink. And then from there we started chatting. One thing led to another, and here we are, we're married. So nothing against electronic dating. It can be the best thing in the world, or it can be the worst thing in the world.
And I must add, for those people who think, oh my God, they met on Match.com, really? My sister and her husband, long, long, long before the internet was invented by Al Gore, ba-boom,
Yeah.
ha ha ha, met her husband in the class, in the, it's not classified, but like the dating ad section of the newspaper. They had that before Match.com. And 5 kids later.
So it can work, but you do have to be careful. Okay, let's.
I thought we were going to talk about our favorite Glenn Campbell songs.
Oh yeah, what's your favorite Glenn Campbell song? The great Glenn Campbell. That's why we played Wichita Lineman.
That's why we played it.
The great Glenn Campbell passed away today at 81. I mean, he had a good full life, but the last few years were tragic. He announced to the world he had Alzheimer's, which I think is just one of the most terrible diseases out there. In 2011. And he actually did his last concert in January of this year.
Didn't we see a story that his daughter was with him and she would help keep him on track?
Yes, he would forget things and she would help him out, and it was really just precious.
So you asked what my favorite...
his last song was called Adios.
Yes, because he
just
knew.
A tear-breaker.
It was just terrible.
Tear-jerker.
So I'm from Houston, Texas, and so my favorite Glenn Campbell song is Galveston, oh Galveston.
Okay, cut her off. Jennifer's actually pretty good at the old karaoke bar. I do have to say. Mine, since we're here in Arizona, might be by the time we get to Phoenix. She'll be rising, or something like that. And that's enough for Glenn Campbell. God rest his soul. He was one of my favorites. I mean, I'm old enough to remember the Glenn Campbell show. And he was just a very sweet man. He had a very good personality. He just kind of had a very clean, wholesome way about him, but yet he was very entertaining and funny. If you're younger and are listening to this and you haven't heard any good Glenn Campbell, get on YouTube and listen to some good Glenn Campbell in his memory. He was just really great, and he will be missed. Okay, now to some of today's crazy news stories that we'd like to chat with you guys a little bit. This is from the Washington Times. Men's sperm count drops dramatic 52%. And it says, this alarming finding was announced last week by an international research team. Sperm counts among men in Western countries have more than halved in the last 40 years. So now I wonder if it would be the same way in, for example, the Middle East.
Doubtful.
Now, why do you think this is?
You wonder. I mean, actually, when you first told me about that story, I thought about all the stories that come out about things that people find in their water.
Right?
I mean, we've seen leftists praise China's one-child policy.
Right.
The left, targets the innocent unborn babies, especially if they are black and brown, for death. Claiming that it is a woman's right to choose. When actually what they're talking about, they claim on the one hand it's a woman's right to choose, and it's not really a baby, it's a clump of cells. But when Queen Bey, get me a freaking pail. Beyonce announced another pregnancy with twins. Oh, Beyonce's pregnant with twins! I thought it was a clump of cells. What he's celebrating? So you have to wonder. That's just a very, very interesting statistic.
Right. I've got my own theory about this, but let me just read a little bit more here. Again, this is from the Washington Times. The international research team that discovered this finding, they drew on studies conducted from 1973 to 2011. So, folks, that's what you call a long-term study. It involved 43,000 men. When they separated the data based on whether the men were from Western countries, including Australia and New Zealand, as well as countries in North America and Europe, or from elsewhere, they found that sperm count of men in Western countries was declining each year. Each year. So this is a concerning trend, because when the sperm count goes to zero, what happens?
No babies.
It's over. Civilization is gone, or at least Western civilization is gone in exactly one generation. Now, I'm going to go full on Alex Jones conspiracy theory here for just a minute, but let's just talk about this, because I think one could easily make the case that psychology affects physicality, right?
Physicality.
Yeah, God, I hate that word. They say it all the time on the NFL Network, and it just drives me nuts. But you know how you feel, like if you're depressed, that can affect your physical energy. If you're depressed, it can even lead to obesity, overweight, and since the 1970s we've had feminazis like Gloria Steinem and these radical feminazis that have been wishing for a gender-neutral society. They have deballed, they've neutered men, they've had a war on men. Even today on college campuses, you'll see this all the time. You can, look it up. Quote, toxic masculinity. And the role...
Remember when masculinity was celebrated?
Remember John Wayne?
Yes.
I mean, who's the most manly man?
And who's that other guy?
Chuck Norris. There's nobody like that, is there? On
and
TV
the
anymore,
other guy,
in the movies anymore?
Charles Bronson.
Bronson?
Bronson.
Badass.
Yes.
Right? I mean, he was kind of like me.
Yeah, honey, he only wishes. He only wishes he was like big sexy Burke.
So, the role of men, real men, has been diminished in society. And, that kind of dovetails perfectly into this Google story, which you've probably all heard at least a little about today. Google fired a gentleman who produced an 11-page memo, if you will, that went viral. And what it did was it simply questioned Google's political correctness, their focus on diversity above all, and he simply recognized science, and he recognized biology, that men and women are different. They are different. They're not identical. They're not exactly the same. And he was very polite about it. He wasn't at all hard-hitting, but he was just asking the question, there's all this focus on hiring more women at Google and other tech companies. And he said, maybe we ought to look into, just possibly, whether men are just more attracted to this industry and women are just less attracted to this industry biologically. There's obviously overlap there between men and women and that kind of thing. But for that he was fired. And there's an excellent article here by Mona Charon in townhall.com today titled "Google Burns a Heretic." And I'm just going to read you just a little bit of that. So what did he, the guy that was fired, say that was so intolerable? Did he say that women aren't smart? Did he say that women should not be recruited to work at Google? Hardly. He offered that perhaps biological differences between the sexes account for the fact that women are not 50% of the engineers at Google, though they are about 48% of Google's non-tech employees, she says. He observed that on average, men tend to be more interested in things and women more interested in people. That shouldn't be controversial. I think that's generally true. Mm-hmm. You love people, I hate people. That's just the way we're made.
You're so good with people.
I just fake it.
Guys, if you see Matthew Burke on the street, please still say hi.
I'll say hi back. But that should not be controversial. I mean, generally that's true. So she says, Mona Charen in Town Hall says, what a scandal. Except in 2015, women accounted for 20.03% of all engineering graduates, but 84.43% of health professionals. Mm. So 84.43% of health professionals are women. Now, are those organizations out there recruiting men? Why or why not?
Yeah, why is
there's a shortage, obviously.
Yeah, a diversity director that's working to recruit men. I'm sure feminazis would be celebrating those stats.
I mean, it makes no sense. As Mark Perry of the American Enterprise Institute noted, the share of women holding tech positions at Google is 20%, is close to the percentage of women that take up computer science that are computer science graduates at 18%. So, are you going to force women to study computer science when they don't want to?
Right. And you know what's interesting is that these same leftists who for years have pushed people getting degrees in things like women's studies, African American studies, and for the record, people, in case you haven't seen by my picture, I am black, unlike Rachel Dolezal, who decided that she was gonna tan her face and cover up her freckles, because she was a pale white chick with strawberry blonde hair and freckles, and then wanted to claim she was a black woman. I've been black my whole life. I've been black since birth, baby. But where's I going with that? I've lost my train of thought.
It'll come back.
Yeah, it'll come back. But the African American studies, women's studies,
and then they wonder why they're underpaid.
All these different things that will not, a bachelor's in poetry, the things that are not gonna earn you any money. So after pushing that onto people with propaganda as valid college degrees, now they want to years later turn around and say, "Oh, it's not fair. Women are earning less money than men."
I think it's on purpose. I really do. So listen to this. This is continued. Now, this is just amazing. I did not know this. I guess I never had any reason to really think about it because I don't see everything through a sexism lens like the left does, So this is Mona Charen again, townhall.com. Our society erupts in routine firestorms about women in technical fields because that is one of the few fields that is male-dominated. But women far outnumber men in many other realms. Besides earning 56% of all bachelor degrees, well, that's not fair, obviously, women comprise 55% of financial managers. Did you know that? Well, that's not fair, obviously. It should be exactly 50. 59% of budget analysts are women. 63% of insurance underwriters are women. 61% of veterinarians, and I understand vets make pretty decent money, are women.
Actually, out of the 3 vets that I know, 2 are women.
Yep.
That I went to school with.
72% of PhD psychologists are also women. So she asks the questions, why are these disparities tolerable? And again, it goes back to there is a war on masculinity.
Yep.
And I contend that is related to the 50% drop in sperm count. Can I prove it? No. But you can't disprove it either. And it makes complete sense because we know that emotions affect the physical body. Do we not? Yes, we do. Okay. Google is just amazing.
In a bad way.
back to this Google story here for just a second. So the whole thing about this political correct stuff is that, you know, they are tolerant. They allow dissent. In fact, the Google CEO, after he fired a dissenter, someone who didn't toe the, you know, anti-science belief that men and women are exactly identical, said, quote, "People must be free to express dissent." Does that make sense to you?
No, but then again, I'm not a leftist.
So we're going to fire dissenters out of one side of our mouth, and then on the other side of our mouth, we're going to say, quote, "People must be free to express dissent."
Yes, unless, of course, you have your ads placed with us, and then we're going to screw you over if we don't like your message.
Well, because you're a dissenter, and
right.
we've seen what happens.
We don't tolerate dissent. We demand tolerance.
Tolerance!
If we don't like what you have to say, you're out. That's Google today.
It's simply unreal. George Orwell, in the book 1984, could not have made this crap up any better.
Prolific.
I mean, if this is not the thought police that George Orwell wrote about, except instead of it being the government, it's a corporation.
And then, yeah, and remember,
I don't know what is.
Remember, Google's Eric Schmidt. Now, he's not technically with Google anymore.
Well,
he's with their parent company, Alphabet, whatever the hell its name is. He actually worked on the Hillary Clinton campaign. Remember all those stories about him stifling certain things about Hillary?
On the search engine.
No, I'm not working on her campaign. But he was seen at events with a Hillary Clinton for president, name tag on. They were all in for Hillary. They are avowed leftists. So
they are, and they're too unself-aware to even know it. They live in their own echo chamber, and I think that was the title of the Google gentleman's memo. Was
they proved him
Google's,
right?
Yeah, intellectual echo chamber. I think I'm pretty close on that. I don't have that right in front of me, but they proved him right. I mean, they're saying they accept dissent, and then at the same time firing dissenters.
Do as I say, not as I do. Because don't worry, the Democrat media complex will cover it the way we want them to. They won't make us look bad. That's Google's philosophy, no doubt.
That garbage really makes me want to pull our hair out. Okay, this might be our final story of the day we're going to talk about. So, let me just ask you a question. Would you find that if a congressman had a painting of the Statue of Liberty changed into a Muslim woman wearing a hijab, what's it called? Hijab? Would you find that offensive? Because I would, and a lot of other people do too. Now, he can put whatever painting he wants in his office, I think, that he wants. This is not like some people were arguing that had a problem with it. It's caused a big controversy. The guy, of course, is from California, so we know right there.
The water. Like I said yesterday, the water.
Yeah, he's from California. He's a Democrat, so we know he's a commie. Lou Correa, I think is how you pronounce it. Rhymes with diarrhea. Correa. Lou, Correa. His district office in Santa Ana, California. He has a painting hanging that depicts the Statue of Liberty as a Muslim woman. And people are rightly upset about it. I mean, this country was not founded on Muslim values, I'm sorry. it was founded on Judeo-Christian values. And it wasn't founded based on deist values as your little commie pinko professors have taught you in college. Read George Washington. Read what the founding fathers said. Read Samuel Adams. Read John Adams. This was a Christian nation. And for them to, depict the Statue of Liberty wearing a Muslim hijab is beyond offensive. Now, the difference is, this has become a pretty big deal, and a bunch of people have actually approached this congressman to tell him that they were highly offended by this, and he basically told them to kiss off. Too damn bad.
Of course, we had another Democrat. Who was that dude? Represented Ferguson, who had a painting hanging in the Capitol Hill building, of cops depicted as pigs attacking black people. So this is today's Democrat Party. Democrats, if you happen to trying to be opening your mind right now, these are your leaders. These are your leaders. They are using you. They don't give a rip about you. Muslims are their latest attack victim.
They want to turn them into a victim group.
They've done their duty that's in their minds with black people. Feel like they have them completely on their side.
They got the Hispanics.
They got the Hispanics. Kick them to the curb.
Got the perverts.
Now let's
got
go
everybody.
for the other victim group.
Yep. And so a bunch of people have approached this guy, this Representative Liu, as in L-O-U, Correa, C-O-R-R-E-A. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. You can find this on Fox News, by the way. Painting of Statue of Liberty as Muslim woman in Democratic Congressman's office stirs controversy. And he just said, well, I'm sorry you're offended. But how many times have you seen Republicans that, we don't want to offend anybody? I mean, if you tell one of these Republicans, if these leftists start shouting them down, they immediately will tuck their tail and run. That's the thing about the left. They don't care. They say, well, you don't have to have the right to offend anybody. That's one of them. But if it's somebody on our side, which is an actual American, who's offended, screw you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You're offended? Too bad. But yet, supposedly our side, I don't even think they're our side, but people that supposedly pretend to be, Republicans or conservatives, all somebody on the left has to do is say, wow, I'm offended. Okay, what do you want me to do?
We're sorry, Master. We're sorry. Sorry, Master.
Yeah.
What do you want us to do? That's that's today's GOP under Obama's Mitch.
By the way, honey, did you see that ad today that Judge Roy Moore has out bashing Mitch McConnell?
I did not, but it's about time.
Judge Roy Moore, he is running against Mitch McConnell's stooge, Luther Strange. I wrote about this today on thepolitistic.com. And he's running against, he's the Ten Commandments judge. The famous Ten Commandments judge that stood up for the Ten Commandments, that stood up for real marriage.
We are a Judeo-Christian nation.
Like it, love it, or leave it. And he said he's getting attacked, as is the other conservative in the race. In all fairness, Congressman Mo Brooks, and he's a solid conservative too. But Judge Roy Moore is leading in that race in the polls by about 8 points right now, and he's running against McConnell's stooge, Luther Strange, who temporarily held the seat here while Jeff Sessions became the Attorney General. And I tell you, this McConnell is running a dirty tricks campaign against Judge Roy Moore and against Congressman Roy Brooks that is reminiscent of the dirty tricks that they ran against a challenger to the ancient rhino Thad Cochran in 2014, where they actually got Democrats in the race to tilt it. They got Democrats to vote for the Republican Thad Cochran because they painted Chris McDaniel, the Tea Party backed challenger in Mississippi, as a racist. Remember that? So this hard
robocalls, if I believe.
Yeah, they did. They did robocall. They were buying votes.
Yeah,
they were buying votes.
Obama's Mitch.
They were going outside of black churches and buying votes. Unreal.
Note, black people from another black woman, don't be so gullible and used.
Hashtag ditch Mitch. Hashtag ditch Mitch. So this hard-hitting ad by Judge Roy Moore, it's called Defeat the Deceivers. Defeat the Deceivers. And I think I'll just play it here.
They lied about repealing Obamacare. Now Mitch McConnell's DC slime machine spending millions spreading lies about Roy Moore, bearing false witness. Why? We know why. We all know why. Roy Moore's honest, and Moore's his own man. Moore fears God, stands for the Constitution, fights for what is right, and believes what we believe. Drain the swamp. Send McConnell a message. Send them all a message. Roy Moore, Senate.
My name's Roy Moore, and I approve this message.
Isn't that awesome?
It's awesome.
That's a great... The DC slime machine.
Yep.
Drain the swamp. Is there a bigger swamp creature than Mitch McConnell?
Turtle.
You know, one of the things I'm disappointed with Donald Trump is that, you know, he says he wants to drain the swamp, but he never says anything bad about McConnell.
Right.
Why the hell is that? I mean, this guy is the swamp leader. He is the Yertle the turtle.
Right.
Sitting on top of the pile.
Even before he was going after conservatives running for a federal office or state office, or whatever, he was attacking conservatives in the Senate like Ted Cruz and Mike Lee.
Oh, absolutely. They don't want conservatives.
No conservatives allowed in Mitch McConnell's world. Why? Because he's Obama's Mitch.
He's Obama's Mitch. And he's bought and paid for by the U.S. Chamber of what Mark Levin calls U.S. Chamber of Crony Capitalism. They are not for free markets. They're not for capitalism. They stand for cronyism, using the power of the federal government to benefit their cronyist K Street whores. That's what they want. All right, do you have anything else to say? I'm about ready to wrap up.
Yeah, I'm ready to wrap up. I will end with this. NFL. Listen up.
Oh my God, are you going to go Kaepernick?
I'm going to say something about Kaepernick. I got a couple of minutes before we got to wrap up. I grew up watching football every Sunday afternoon with my family.
With my daddy.
The whole family. Sitting in the living room, watching football when it came on. Pre-cable, so we had few games we could watch. Call my daddy every Sunday, God rest his soul, before he died, to talk about the games, especially about the Texans. Go Texans, that's what's up.
Oh my God. Help her.
Do not social engineer the NFL. If you did not learn last year with Kaepernick leading the charge, the anti-American charge against the American flag and insulting America, if you did not learn from your reduced ratings that you tried to spin as being a result of a presidential election, then you need to really do some self-reflection and learn. Now, I've heard that Spike Lee, now here's what I remember about Spike Lee, the fake black activist, because the man just will say anything. He's a freaking prostitute who'll say anything to make a buck. I remember him railing against black women trying to be white.
Oh my
black
God,
women trying to be white. And then I remember when he got married to, talking about black women straightening their hair. You're trying to be white. Then he marries a black woman who might have been biracial, who was light-skinned with blue eyes and straight light brown hair. The man is
Rachel
a
freaking
hypocrite. But he wants to hold a rally in support of Colin Kaepernick outside the NFL headquarters, trying to bring on his best Al Sharpton to shake down NFL teams and make them hire Kaepernick. You guys want to hire Colin Kaepernick? Why don't you go out and buy an NFL team so you can hire who you want? So Roger Goodell, you're already hated. Every single draft, you are booed. Stand strong against this social engineering attempt of the NFL. Realize who your real fans are. We don't want this anti-America BS. We don't want Colin Kaepernick to be shoved down our throats because people think he is entitled. We are pro-America. The NFL, a lot of people's baseball historically has been America's sport. I'm sorry. For years, it turned into the NFL, but you are going to ruin it with this social engineering, Black Lives Matter alignment. Don't do it. So if you feel like you need some absolving from turning your back on Kaepernick, because despite the fact that he's a cancer, he's also statistically inferior to many people, including Jay Cutler, who got the Miami Dolphins backup job. Stand strong against that crap and just play the game. We don't want to politicize the NFL, except, keep the NFL pro-America, because that's the base of your fans, not Spike Lee.
Yeah, let Spike Lee stay in the NBA.
Yes.
Let him stay in the NBA. Seems to be very, very comfortable there. I love basketball. Nothing against the NBA at all. But just watch. He's going to try to turn this in to a racial issue, which I've got 2 words for him. Russell Wilson. If you're a black quarterback and you're good, you get a starting gig. Mm-hmm. If you're a black quarterback who, generally speaking, sucks, you're number 32 to 34 statistically in the NFL in virtually every category.
You don't deserve a starting job.
You don't deserve a starting job. You don't. And when you turn off half of your fans who hate your guts because they can't stand you disrespecting those who died for this country and the great country that we live in, then, too damn bad. That's on you, especially when there's no mea culpa. Thank you for listening to the Burke Brigade, brought to you by
the Liberty Daily,
your drudge alternative. Have a great evening, everybody.
God bless America.
God